That's where I want to welcome in my next guest, national security expert and retired CIA chief of station, my very good friend, Scott Uehlinger. Scott, great to see you.
Thanks, and Happy New Year, John.
Happy New Year, Scott. So this case is unusual. American businessman goes over there. He's a corporate security director. His family says for a wedding, and inexplicably, the Russians arrest him for what they're calling an act of espionage. Vague term. You spent almost 20 years at the CIA. What could that possibly mean?
That's right. My initial impressions of this is a total setup, all right? The man is innocent. The CIA does not employ amateurs on its operations. So this guy was not engaged in any kind of espionage. But I do understand what's going on here. This is directly related to the case of Maria Butina. You recall she's 30 years old, and she's going to be sentenced after pleading guilty to, political interference in, some form of espionage related to she was befriending some conservative groups. Not a very good spy at all or useful, but she was caught doing it. This is directly related to that case.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the Russians are using him as leverage. They've taken this guy now essentially hostage on trumped-up charges, in your opinion, and they're going to now leverage his custody with that of Butina's in an attempt to get Butina, her sentence commuted or her release from jail and sent back to Russia. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's exactly right, John. In this case, for instance, if Butina were I have to remember, Butina came over here not as a member of any embassy. She was, like a, quote, deep cover operative.
Right.
She was not a diplomat. And that's the important thing to understand here. See, if she was working out of an embassy, then you would have seen the Russians roll up a U.S. embassy-attached person, but they did not. They instead grabbed an innocent man because, you see, the Butina case is causing a lot of angst in Russia. And, of course, the Russians maintain that the woman is just a regular woman who's absolutely innocent. So in the Russian mentality, what they need to do is they need to establish equivalence. They're not going to arrest an intel officer and exchange her for him or her for Butina, because that would be tacitly admitting that she was working for them. So
right.
What instead they do is they arrest an innocent man because they want to establish equivalence. See, Butina is an innocent person, much the same as we all know that poor Paul Whelan is an innocent person. So that's the way the Russian mind thinks, and I'm convinced that's exactly why they did this.
And it's important for the viewers to know that while Scott was a CIA station chief, he did spend most of his career operating with the CIA in former Russian republics, operating against the Russians. He has a very unique insight. You speak fluent Russian as well, right, Scott?
Yeah, I wouldn't exactly say fluent, but I speak it quite well. Apparently, Paul Whelan does speak some Russian. He's traveled there several times
right.
on business and pleasure, and hopefully he'll roll with the punches on this, and hopefully we'll see a swift resolve to this. I hope he's not going to be in jail for some time.
All right, let's listen to a clip of Paul Whelan's brother, David. He says he found out his brother was arrested by the following news.
We hadn't heard from Paul on Friday night. He's extremely close to his family. My parents are elderly, and he dotes on our family dog. And so we expected to have heard through them that he had been successful in Russia and, was having a good time, sending pictures, whatever, and hadn't heard from him. And then over the weekend, we realized that he must be missing, and he was just out of communication. Yeah. It was Monday morning when I did a Google search and found that the Russian ministry had announced that it had arrested him as a potential spy.
So, Scott, is that typically how these arrests, how these detentions happen? The person is just grabbed up off the street and no one is notified?
Yes, it is. However, like I said, this is a little unusual. I can't remember the last time an American, non-diplomat was grabbed in this manner, but it's because of the unique nature of the Butina case right. is why we're seeing this. In the past, what the Russians have always done, whether it's against the French, the British, the Americans, or other countries, is what they like to do is they like to use false flags, have double agents ostensibly working with Americans when they're working for the Russians the whole time. And what they do is these provocations, they'll reel the American in, and they'll keep him, it's called the dangle operation. They'll keep this intelligence officer dangling until such time where it's politically effective for them to set him or her up and arrest them. to maybe some, like, for instance, in a case like this, if a Russian intelligence officer were grabbed in Washington, they already, unfortunately, may have an American dangle up going against somebody in Moscow, which they can then immediately arrest the guy and use that as leverage to get their guy out from under in Washington or New York.
And affect some kind of prisoner trade, right?
Exactly.
All right, Scott, before we run out of time, I want you to take your CIA hat off and put on your other hat, that of a U.S. Navy commander. And I want to talk to you about a policy change that recently took effect in the United States Navy. As of January 1st, yesterday, sailors cannot be punished in what some consider an arcane manner, limiting their food to days of eating nothing, their meals to days of eating nothing but bread and water. Now, this punishment has been around since the 1800s. Commanders can, of course, still punish people who violated minor rules without having a military trial, but limiting rations is no longer one of those punishment options. So as a former United States naval officer, Scott, we have about a minute left. What's your take on all this?
I think it's probably appropriate. You know, I saw some misbehavior when I was at sea in the Navy, but I never heard of anyone in collective memory actually being assigned, you know, bread and water only. So it's hardly ever used. It's a vestige of the old days, and so perhaps it's better to move on from there. I mean, we used to have flogging as well, but that was abolished in the late 1890s. So
I'm gonna get me a beer. Hey, Robert, my husband Bruce is now in here. You want a beer?
No, I'll pass on the beer for now.
You sure? Come over and say hello to folks.
Yes.
So, this is my sweetie.
Hello.
And I'm crazy.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
I'm glad you're here.
Enjoy your beer.
And that is where I absolutely have to bring back in my good friend Scott Uehlinger. Scott, that was kind of cringe-inducing. I think that might be the first beer Elizabeth Warren has ever had. Nothing about that was genuine or natural. I mean, am I missing something here?
No, actually, the word that came to mind was cringe-worthy, exactly. Somebody on Twitter was speaking about her today, about her tone deafness. You know, she's sort of like Hillary Clinton without the charm.
Yeah.
And she said that, and the person who tweeted said that Elizabeth Warren reminds her of the nosy neighbor who lives in the cul-de-sac, who drives a Subaru and has a coexist bumper sticker on a car. And I think that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I mean, that video, that was just, man, talk about trying too hard. I mean, look, if Elizabeth Warren is who the Democrats are running, I'm kind of happy because she's among the most progressive, the most far left. If that's the direction they're going to go, Hillary tried to be relatively moderate and she lost. America's not going to gravitate towards socialism. But let's look at a video that another darling of the left released. And this is her also trying to show she's one of the people. That's newly elected Democratic Socialist Congresswoman, someone I spar with on Twitter often, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Watch this.
There's no special sauce to it. You just got to be good at getting things done. So here's the final product, everybody. Before I sign off, someone said TYT or CYN or CNN. TYT. Okay, here you go. Here's the final product. We got some of our mac and cheese. Let's see. Reaction. What do you think, Sean?
That was really good.
I mean, Scott, I don't think you really need an instructional video to make mac and cheese. Every 5-year-old does it. But I mean, what is this with the new trend of Democrats, the most far left socialist Democrats, needing to be just regular Joe, regular Jane America? Is anybody buying this?
Yeah, I don't really think so. I mean, the last time I remember seeing things like this was actually in the old Soviet Union days. You know, Yuri Andropov became the head of the Soviet Union, and you know he had been head of the KGB, and everyone was kind of worried about that. But they were trying to, you know, soften his image by saying, "Oh, but he likes jazz, American jazz music. He's a regular guy." It's the same type of thing. It is.
Yeah, it's like Soviet era propaganda, right? They put out these videos. I mean, Ocasio-Cortez at least looked a little more comfortable in the video. Clearly, she's made she's made mac and cheese before. I don't think Elizabeth Warren has had many beers. That's the whole thing. But again, just weird.
Right. Exactly.
All right, Scott Uehlinger. Scott, always a pleasure. Thanks for your time today, and I promise you, I'll make some mac and cheese and send it your way.
Roger that. Okay, thanks. Have a happy New Year.
Thanks. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more breaking news coverage, exclusive interviews, and great videos, click over here to our YouTube channel and subscribe. And don't forget to download the free Newsmax TV app. Newsmax TV, it's real news for real people.